So, yeah, without further ado, I'm so excited to welcome everybody to the November Neuro and webinar, Neuro and Nonprofit. Please welcome the IYNA's very own Jiya Mody and Jacob Umans. Jiya is the current executive director of the International Youth Neuroscience Association, and she is currently an undergraduate student at Yale University pursuing a BS in Molecular Biophysics and Biochemistry. Jacob is the co-founder of the International Youth Neuroscience Association, where he founded the organization in 2016 at the USA Brain Bee. And he's also our current board chair, and he's pursuing an MD PhD at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. So just to start our discussion today, I'll begin maybe just with letting our speakers telling us a little bit more about themselves and if you want to expand on any of these points further.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm Jiya. I'm currently the executive director of IYNA, and I sort of got involved a few years ago, first doing some outreach through our Brain Bee programs, and then afterwards just slowly starting to run the Brain Bee boot camp, and now working with all of our wonderful volunteers. And so outside of IYNA, really, I'm a fully booked undergraduate student. So unfortunately it's very busy, but it's really rewarding to be part of IYNA. And currently I pursue a lot of research at Yale where I'm studying microtubule dynamics and function, and also concurrently pursuing studies in molecular biophysics and biochemistry through classes and coursework. So really excited to talk to you all, happy to answer your questions, and I'll pass it over to Jacob.
Hey everyone, so nice to get to see you all here today. I am, as sort of Irene mentioned in her wonderful introduction, I sort of helped start the IYNA back in 2016, back when I was a Brain Bee competitor in high school, and sort of since then, just getting to study neuroscience, be part of a community of other people excited about neuroscience. It's really been a lot of fun to do, and just to see how the IYNA's grown, how our members are learning, growing, and pursuing careers in neuroscience themselves. It's honestly wonderful to see. Outside of the IYNA itself, I'm an MD PhD student at Johns Hopkins, trying to study myelin in, I guess, trying to study myelin in the central nervous system, sort of how it degenerates in certain diseases. And I'm just really excited to get to be here, talk with you all about the IYNA, talk with you all about the IYNA some more.
It's great hearing about you guys as always. And yeah, it's for our first question. Maybe this one's more directed towards Jacob for the start. Why did you start the IYNA? What was kind of your inspiration and how you just kind of had the idea, I guess?
Yeah, I guess like I was at the Brain Bee, so I sort of had to like neuroscience before the competition itself. But really, one of the things that happened when I was studying neuroscience is that I was studying it mostly alone, just looking at brain facts in my room, just trying to study in the library. Or I guess there weren't many people at my high school who were excited about neuroscience, and it was hard to really find people to share that excitement with. At Brain Bee, really, we found a community. It's other young people who are excited about neuroscience, all from their own schools. We got together, had a wonderful time, and I think really fundamentally we didn't want the community to end with. And when the founder of the USA Brain Bee, Dr. Norbert Mislinski, had ended up encouraging us to try to start an organization that would sort of help keep young neuroscientists together, we really jumped at that opportunity, started building it out, first through a journal, then a chapter system. And I think really the fundamental goal has always been both sort of the science education, but just as important, building a community for young people to meet other neuroscientists, find that excitement, and share it with other people before they get to, say, neuroscience majors in undergraduate, where sort of finding that community is a bit easier. We just want anybody, wherever they are, to have free access to these high quality neuroscience education materials and to get to share their excitement with like-minded peers.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I can also share your struggles with just looking at Brain Bee from just like by yourself as a fellow Brain Bee participant. Chia, do you want to also tell us about how you got involved in the IYNA and maybe how you found out about it?
Yeah, I actually think like I was honestly searching Google for like ways to get involved with neuroscience, and I think maybe a testament to our SEO, but I came upon IYNA and sort of looked at like the open positions. I think actually at the time there was a chapter at my school as well, so I had been getting involved with that. And so essentially through the combination of those and then eventually applying as a Brain Bee team member, and sort of helping create resources for different chapters. I was like, this is a really powerful organization that's doing a lot of great things and is something I want to be involved with. And it sort of went from there.
Do you also want to maybe talk a little bit more about how you kind of evolved throughout the organization and the different roles you took on before becoming executive director?
Yeah, so one thing I think is really special about IYNA and is definitely something like other volunteers have experienced as well is as they've moved through different roles, it's sort of been like you learn more about IYNA's reach in a different field, and I think it pulls you really deeper into the IYNA community. Um, and so for me, it was really through BrainBee that I sort of traversed different roles. So I was first a resource team member. IYNA then underwent a restructuring, and afterwards something I'd really wanted to do in the new sort of volunteer system was to start a Brain Bee boot camp. Because something I'd realized at my own school while trying to participate in the Brain Bee was that there was really limited resources in terms of specifically preparing for Brain Bees. And I think that it's something that's very dependent on the area that you live and sort of what resources are accessible to you. And so, really, to combat that barrier, it was something I was really passionate about doing and setting up. And sort of with the help of our last executive director, it was something we were able to do, obviously, with the help of the IVB itself. And I think that whole process was really exciting for me. It's something that really sort of solidified my commitment to the IYNA and then sort of led to this next position.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And it's incredible seeing how big the Brain Beaker boot camp has grown as well in its reach. Yeah, and then for either of you, if you guys want to also tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to pursue STEM in particular, and like where did you start, and if you had any key like turning points or realizations, that would be great.
Sure, I could take this one. For me, I guess I sort of I guess I can't necessarily point to a single moment where I could say this is it, this is the only thing I want to be doing, but I would say it's sort of just building up. Like first sort of young, getting excited about nature, getting excited about biology, and sort of as I've learned more, I've become more and more excited about the work that I do and sort of figured out what in that field gets me most excited. And I think really, especially sort of at the high school level, you don't necessarily have to know what you want to do, what you want to spend your life on. I think my biggest piece of advice on this is sort of just to try a whole lot of different things, figure out what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and then just continue following that path, learning more about what you need to move to the next step in sort of career progression. And I think that's sort of how I ended up making my way here. It's sort of figured out I really enjoy sort of seeing patients. I really enjoy doing science, and MD PhD is the type of career path that'll let me bring those interests together. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to it was just for me, it was just a matter of continuing to try, figure out what I liked, and then moving down that path.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Also, I think it'd be good if you wanted to maybe expand a little bit more about your decision into pursuing like your path after college. So that was the MD PhD, and if you had any specific things you wanted going into it.
I think for me, like just the decision to pursue MD PhD was sort of it's for me sort of my clinical interests are sort of in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, which really have no cure, and the treatments that we have are not. are not particularly effective in sort of stopping the disease trajectory. And for me, really, I really enjoy working with this patient population. It's sort of a people I've committed to work supporting, but at the same time, really, it's hard to see people going through these diseases knowing that there's so little that we can do. And what sort of draws my excitement about research is sort of our ability to find better treatments. And I guess beyond that, it's just, I really enjoy science. I enjoy being in the lab, doing experiments, finding out something that's really never been done before. So, because MD PhD is sort of type of career path that'll let me bring my interests together in a way where I can sort of use science to help people.
Yeah, totally. I love that moment as well. And then, Gia, if you want to also add on to this, like what kind of inspired your career directions and also if they changed as you kind of progressed throughout high school and maybe even college.
Yeah, I think that I really echoed Jacob when he said, like, as he continues to explore science, he gets more and more enthralled and excited by it. And I think I really feel the same way, like the recent like mapping of the fly brain and just like so many cool things have been coming out in science, not only recently, but basically like throughout the years, like I've grown up. And so I think just being surrounded by like a system where there's so much excitement and discovery, I think is something really motivating to pursue a career in research or um personally I'm not completely sure what I want to do in the future. I'm sort of debating between an MD, a PhD, and sort of a combination of the two like Jacob. So in that sense, it's completely okay to not know what you want. But really, to answer your question about what got me interested in science, I think it was some great teachers I had early on, and also sort of exploring a lot of different things. And I think that sounds a little counterintuitive, like when you ask someone, what got you interested in science? And they say, look at a lot of different things. But I think that to really appreciate like your interest in something, you have to know that you're interested in it more than a ton of other options. And I think that's really for me how I came to it. I like tried out like acting when I was younger and a bunch of other like engineering clubs and sort of realized that like when I was learning anatomy and physiology and sort of taking classes that really explored the things that I'd always wanted to learn about, like I think there's some sort of aha moment where you realize like this is really it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. All right, and then the next question we also had from some of our participant questions from the forum was that what are some of the most rewarding or some of the most challenging parts of leading an international nonprofit?
Yeah, I guess I can touch on this question. Um, there are definitely challenges. I think that some of the biggest ones are basically that we are international. So I think a lot of times, like especially in the modern world, like we crave like human connection. And I think that that is definitely accomplished to a point over a virtual platform. I definitely wish we could do things in person and sort of like have more events with the world, but really our chapter system does that. And so that's been a really great part of it. I think that honestly, something we've tried to do in the organization is really turn a lot of sort of the challenges into our strengths and sort of the rewarding parts. So in terms of like language barriers, trying to translate materials, and make them more accessible, like holding more programming, to basically keep people engaged, which I think initially was definitely a struggle. And I think like essentially uniting our volunteers towards the common goal towards a common goal really combats that potential challenge. But it is definitely challenging. It requires a lot of time, but I think when you're really passionate about sort of education and doing what we do here, it doesn't really make the challenges very apparent. But maybe Jacob can add on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Jacob, if you want to add on.
think just to start with some of the sort of rewarding parts, I think it's just getting to interact with the students and volunteers, really. like seeing, say, our summer course students come in, maybe not being able to describe what an action potential is, come out having written written sort of a mock grant proposal, having an idea of not just what's out there in the science, but what isn't and how they can contribute something new. I think it's really powerful just to get to see students learn and see how they too can become scientists, and getting to see our members and volunteers go on to pursue neuroscience, go on to learn about career paths that they might not have otherwise thought they were ready for. I think that's honestly one of the most rewarding things we have. I think, sort of to add on to Jia's point a little bit about sort of the IYNA being international, another challenge is just figuring out really how can we best serve our diverse global community? How can we make the IYNA a place where everybody everywhere in the world of all backgrounds feels welcome, valued, and feels like they're getting what they want out of the organization? I think the way we can start working on this is trying to build a diverse international team like the IYNA has, and trying to learn about sort of what our members are excited about engaging in and sort of trying to get involved with. But I think another part of that, it honestly, it comes from you all. You all are part of the IYNA. You're a member just as much as me or Gia is. And it's important to us to hear sort of your ideas, your thoughts, and what you're enjoying. So I do want you all to know that you're always welcome to reach out, talk about sort of maybe anything unique to your country or culture or background that maybe shapes the way that you'd engage with neuroscience or our programs. We encourage you to sort of share just the ideas that excite you, and we want to make sure that all of our members are involved with shaping the future of the IYNA. So I think this is something we're trying to do, trying to build an IYNA inclusive to everybody. But for those of you here and for all of the members of your chapters, we'd love to hear from you on how we can try to better serve your communities as well.
Yeah, and I think add on to that note, even though the IYNA is like a very virtual platform, I think we're really centered around human connection. So getting to know everybody has been one of my favorite moments about the IYNA as well. Yeah, I think also a good question to kind of follow up on that note, Jacob, if you want to tell us maybe about how the direction of the IYNA has changed, or maybe some parts have stayed the same and how you've kind of seen that progress as you've been in the IYNA during its whole time.
Sure. Yeah. From really the outset, our vision has always been centered on sort of the dual elements of community building and sort of science education. So, how can we first sort of create resources? How can we sort of create resources, create educational materials, find ways to let students learn more about neuroscience? And also, how can we use those educational materials to bring people together? And I think that part of our mission has not wavered since we started, really. The ways we've been working towards that have changed and expanded. For example, like our journal has been around since our founding in 2016. It was one of the very first project we initiated. And I think our chapter system, though really the structure of our own chapters team has changed, we've always really encouraged school students and schools to start building chapters in their communities, finding ways to share their excitement for neuroscience with the people around them. So in addition to sort of the online community, encouraging our students to form their own sort of personal communities of students excited about neuroscience. I think our summer course was sort of actually we were originally writing it with the goal of trying to make it sort of an in-class year-long neuroscience course that maybe teachers could take our curriculum materials from online, bring it into the classroom. But sort of what we ended up finding over time is that be rather challenging to really get that done, fitted into school curricula. But that really, when COVID hit, that was when we sort of ultimately made the decision to bring the curriculum that we'd been working on for years online as our summer course, rather than having to, rather than sort of relying on other people to teach it, relying on other people to organize it. We decided to organize the summer course ourselves and run it sort of with our team of volunteers and a wonderful team of guest lecturers who really I'm very grateful have made the time to support the IYNA with this summer and in our previous summers. But sort of it's been a lot of challenges, lots of new projects, lots of new partnerships over time, but really these goals of community and sort of curriculum and education, they've guided us throughout this whole journey. And I think, Jiya, you could talk about sort of how you've been building on that and sort of the new directions that you've been trying to take the IYNA in during your tenure as executive director.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that honestly, some of the biggest changes we've made is expanding our volunteer team, expanding our ways we're engaging members, like through Irene's amazing programming through Neuro and also just through the different sort of programs and lectures that we've been holding. And basically to be more transparent, essentially growing our chapters team, having more newsletters go out to update you all on IYNA happenings, and essentially just trying to improve communication and sort of the organization of our organization entirely. So I'm always very open to taking feedback on all of that and sort of hearing from all of you on how our programming can grow. And something to be excited about that will be coming soon is an opportunity for members to propose their own events and essentially be given the support and resources to sort of make them happen. So I'd be really excited for that. And we're also looking to hopefully in the next few months or so create a member honor system whereby coming to these sorts of events and programs and by engaging with our Discord channels and just our membership in general, you'll be able to earn enough points to become part of our honor system.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the IYNA has also really done well is how we've been able to build partnerships with these international organizations, whether it's like the Alzheimer's Association, the International Neuroethics Society, or I think the International Brain Beat as well with our Brain Beat Boot Camp. So I think one question would be good for both of you is that like, how did you find like, or how did you start building these connections with all these people across the world and all these big organizations? And like, how did you start that? And how did you kind of evolve that over time?
I think sort of like we've been sort of talking about a few times now, it's sort of personal connections. Like I would consider the board members, our advisors, people, yeah, that like I'd consider them friends to some extent. Like I really enjoy our meetings. I enjoy getting to talk with them. They're really wonderful, intelligent, talented people who have great ideas about the IYNA and are excited about science outreach. So I think just talking with them sort of as people excited about outreach, want to collaborate, I think that's sort of how I like to think about it. Just so yes, we have to bring good ideas, we have to put in the work, but we have to also really enjoy working together fundamentally and have a shared vision for what we want to achieve. So I think it's about really finding that shared vision, talking about it, and just being excited about science. I would say that's really the most important part. That's really the most important part of it.
Yeah, that's great. And Jacob, since you are a current board chair as well as you kind of talked about, do you want to maybe tell us about how you got started when you first started the organization and how you started reaching out to these people, whether that was through like some other connections with different things you've done, or if it was just through like cold emailing?
Right. I guess at least for the brain bee, sort of we started out of the brain bee, so that sort of connection was really built into how we were expanding. But I think I guess I wasn't necessarily the point person for some of these big partnerships, but yeah, either sort of connect our existing board members and advisors could help us make connections in some cases. Other cases we reached out ourselves with an idea. But yeah, I think it's about sort of, again, like having this clear idea for what you want to do. What do you want the partnership to look like? Actually, for Neuro&, we started this initiative, we got the idea, started this partnership at the Society for Neuroscience in person. When Jiya and I had went, we spoke with people at Dana, and it sounded like, I guess, had a good time meeting, and then afterwards figured out logistics for the project. So I think really, it's happened through a variety of ways, but again, sort of being excited about the outreach and having a clear vision for what you want to do is, I'd say, the best way to reach out for anything, like be it an outreach initiative or sort of even just like a summer lab internship. Just talking, just showing that you care and being excited about the work that you do.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's great that you also mentioned how like you and Jay have also been able to bring the IYNA to Society for Neuroscience and kind of engage with the larger field in person as well beyond our chapter system. Yeah, Jay, if you want to also maybe go ahead and talk a little bit more about like this one's more moving into something more personal, but how do you stay balanced and manage burnout and stay motivated, especially trying to balance like such a rigorous college level coursework and with the demands of the IYNA and the commitment there?
Yeah, I think that a big part of it is sort of making sure that every day or sort of every few days I set aside like a specific amount of time to sort of work on IYNA things. And I think that that's something that's really helped me stay on top of things and how we maintain communication with our volunteers. I also think like sort of IYNA isn't really a chore for me. It's more something I enjoy. And so I think that is a huge part of it, because it's not something I'm trying to put off. It's something I'm trying to prioritize. And so I think in that sense, sort of holding IYNA in that regard has definitely helped me. But I definitely balance IYNA with some fun, like physical activities, like being part of a Pongra team at school, and also with my classes and research. But I think all of those things sort of add to each other because they're all things I want to do. And sort of when I talk to people who um, are either balancing a lot, I sort of ask them, like, what is it you really want to do and what really energizes you and engages you and is something like you want to be doing even 5, 10 years from now. So I think that all the things I do, especially IYNA, are definitely true to that for me, and I would really recommend thinking of things that way if you're someone who's struggling with that.
Yeah, and I think it's great how you kind of frame how the way you view the IYNA is really just passion and purpose so that it really never feels like an additional task. Jacob, do you want to also add on that and how you started to like kind of, especially when you transition into grad school and medical school doing the MD PhD path, how you kind of balance that increase, I feel like, in work as well with your stuff at the IYNA?
Yes, the way sort of I've heard it described for sort of medical school, graduate school is sort of you have time for anything you want, but not everything you want. So that just sort of goes, I think that can sort of be applied to, say, like undergrad setting as undergrad or even high school settings as well. It's sort of, there are a set of priorities that you have to do with schoolwork, with studying, with sort of preparing for applications, if that's sort of applicable to you, or sort of preparing for sort of the next step in career. But like sort of after sort of those responsibilities are done, sort of there's a limited amount of time for outside involvement, like fitness, hanging out with friends, like out extracurriculars. And it's just a matter of, I'd say, figuring out like what do you want to be committed to, how much time do you want to spend on it. And for me, really, one of the things I valued was sort of depth over breadth. I was never really involved with that many clubs, but for the ones I was involved with, say high school undergrad, and even so some of the medical schools clubs, like it's just, I chose things that I really valued, that I was excited to spend my time in, rather than necessarily doing too much to feel like I was checking a boxes. I chose the things that I was excited about and really tried to commit my all to them. And I think just sort of having a few deep commitments is what allows me to sort of still prioritize my studies while also staying involved with the things I care about. I guess with the IYNA over the past few years, I think I've sort of transitioned a bit more from being an active volunteer writing the curriculum materials and helping lead projects to being a bit better about delegating responsibilities delegating responsibilities through Jiya and our incredible talented team of volunteers. And I think really both sort of finding the things you care about and also, I guess, when it's applicable, sort of finding the people who will help you get to where you want to go, I think are probably the biggest things that have helped me sort of balance the IYNA, MD, PhD, and just life.
Yeah, totally. And then also just kind of following up on both of your guys's answers for that. When you started transitioning from like high school to college and even to graduate school, like what do you think was the biggest change you saw, whether that was in like your environment, the people you were surrounded by, or some of the things you had to do?
Yeah, I think I could definitely speak on that. When transitioning from high school to undergrad, I definitely saw that as a really big change. I think the one like biggest change is like that you get so much more choice over who you surround yourself with. Because college is definitely bigger. I think that could slightly depend on where you go, but it's definitely a bigger environment with a lot of different people with different interests and different backgrounds, and it's very easy to like surround yourself with a lot of diversity. And I think that that's something that's really special, and just adds a lot of value. Like I think I went to like an Asian night market a few weeks ago at college, and just like got to try so many different types of food, and different like cultural things. And I think that that was something really enriching for me, because I think my like hometown definitely doesn't have that level of diversity. Um, I think in addition to that, there's so many more interest groups to explore different things you want. Um, because college is bigger, there's more people interested in really niche things. Like we have a like game, like a board game club at our school, which is really fun. Um, and I just think like there's so much space to explore like who you are, and really figure that out. And I think college is a great time. So is high school too. Just it's a really great experience. And so wherever you are, I just encourage you to explore the diversity around you, and sort of let yourself be carried by that.
Really, I would definitely echo Gia's point, but I would say really another big thing is sort of not necessarily just control of sort of who you spend your time with, but more control over who you want to be, what sort of career you want to build towards. Like in high school, it's mainly the same sort of regimented, a very similar regimented curriculum for everybody. But in undergraduate, you're choosing every class you take, ever, and what major you want because you want to. And I think that's really a powerful thing to have control over. You also get control over how do you want to spend your time? What sort of career do you want to build towards? What do you want to do outside of class to prepare for that? And I think really going into whatever you do with the mindset of you're building towards your future, I guess, how do you want to allocate your time so that you can build the future you want is a really powerful thing to do. Like, I guess in medical school, it's sort of the same curriculum for everybody, but in the time outside of that, there are lots of there are different ways to learn more about the things you're interested in. And I guess for graduate school, sort of I'm choosing a lab based on what kind of scientist I want to be when I'm for the rest of for honestly the rest of my life. And I think I've chosen a lab where I'm going to be challenged to think rigorously about the science, where I'm going to be challenged to grow and do good work in sort of ask the questions that I think are meaningful. So I guess, really in these transitions, you're sort of getting more control. You're getting a little bit more control and the chance to decide what sort of person you want to be, what sort of career you want to build towards. So I think in those transition periods, taking ownership of those transition times, having a sense of what do you want to do with the opportunities you have, how do you want to take advantage of the opportunities you've been given, the people you're going to get to meet is valuable. And I don't necessarily mean that in just like what lab to join. For example, like an undergraduate, when else are you going to get the chance to go to the office hours of a world-leading art historian and ask them about sort of their perspectives on a piece you're interested in, ask them for, say, museum advice if you're going on a trip to Europe, or any sort of thing like that. I think it's just really powerful to have the chance to meet such a wide range of people, do such a wide range of things, and going into those transitions deliberately with the idea that you're going to take advantage of that next step in your trajectory to figure out who you want to be it's an important and powerful thing to do, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. I think both your guys' responses really echo the fact that college is what you make out of it, and it really is a choice, even beyond where you attend or like what institution you're at. It's really what you do with it. Yeah, great. And then we're just gonna go back into the field of neuroscience. So, what are some ways you've seen neuroscience applications benefit society, or have you or you've done so yourself and worked on?
Really, there are, I guess, just sort of in medicine and research, really, I think one of the big stories that sort of comes to my mind for sort of physician scientists would be sort of multiple sclerosis, in sort of the case of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a progressive neurological disease where your immune system starts to recognize myelin as a sort of a foreign antigen, sort of the same way it would recognize, say, a virus or bacteria, and then it mounts an immune response against it. And over the past 20, 30 years, we've gone from sort of having very few effective treatments to developing, I think, like around 20 different drugs that can sort of modify or slow sort of the course. And the way we do this is sort of through clinician or through doctors and researchers working together, trying to find ways to better understand and better treat it, like understanding it through a whole range of different angles, sort of from immune cells, where they go in the lymph nodes, to sort of drugs that might prevent them from crossing the blood-brain barrier. I think the power of science is that we can really develop new treatments for a whole range of diseases. I think sort of even beyond sort of the question of medicine, like neuroscience, it allows us to understand fundamentally who we are. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to think, to see, to feel? And sort of and neuroscience shapes our everyday life, like sleep, knowing that full 8 hours of sleep can help us sort of promote memory consolidation, that sleep deprivation impairs learning, knowing the ways, like sort of understanding the neurobiology of, say, stress, anxiety, mental health. Like these are very important things. And I think understanding neuroscience is it's fundamentally the study of us and how we interact with the world. And I think there are really such a wide range of ways it's shaped the way I see things. And I think it's going to continue to inform our understanding of a whole lot more about the human experience as we continue to explore the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Actually, I also wanted to share that. So I recently went to a conference that was exploring like pink one related Parkinson's, which is essentially like mitochondrial related Parkinson's. And one of the guest speakers they had was a person who was actually suffering from the condition, based in New Zealand. And I think like hearing her talk about her experience was like a really important reminder that there are real people who are suffering from a lot of different neurodegenerative diseases. And I think particularly for mitochondrial related Parkinson's, there's like a prevalence rate of around like 30% in New Zealand. And so it's like a big population with suffering from this particular disease. And I think neuroscience research is often like siloed in labs, and it's hard to really like see the people out there. And I think something really powerful about an MD PhD is that you do. Um, but to people interested in neuroscience, like there are so many people you are helping by doing research, by pursuing like careers in neuroscience, and there's a whole population out there that's really benefited by that. So that was a really important reminder for me, so I just wanted to share it with you all.
Sorry, just to back up, when you say prevalence of 30%, do you mean 30% of people with inherited Parkinson's disease, 30% with any form of Parkinson's disease? I imagine you don't mean 30% of the New Zealand population.
No, I don't. So of the people with Parkinson's, 30% suffer from this particular form, which is a really high prevalence rate for the particular form. I really encourage you to look into it. It's a very interesting, I think, form of the disease. But it's something that interests me because I did Parkinson's research, but I don't expect it to be familiar to you all. I was just using it as a maybe good example of the humanity behind a lot of neuroscience research and work.
Yeah, I think it's great to hear about your experiences also seeing neuroscience beyond just like lab or like wet lab and the papers, but seeing the faces behind neuroscience. I think that's something all of the IYNA really works to do as well. Just going on and adding on to back to your experiences in college or undergrad, looking back, are there any things you wish you could have done differently in high school or for Jacob in college?
I think for me, just the biggest thing would be sort of, I can say, like, I think as I'm sure you all can tell, I'm very excited about sort of the physician scientist career path, MD PhD. I'm very happy with sort of where I ended up, but I think sort of the way I said, sort of the importance of exploration, I feel like I frankly could have done a bit more of that myself. I think a lot of my electives were, say, like history of medicine, medical anthropology. So finding ways to explore a little bit more would have been valuable. But I think right now I'm just sort of trying to take advantage of the chances I have to get to do that. So I think, yeah, it's just sort of that idea of exploration. It's something that I really value, and I wish I could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, I think sort of echoing that point, definitely wish I had sort of explored more things in high school, and I'm taking advantage of that now, through different courses, like a Bob Dylan course I'm taking, and a few other things. But I think also beyond that, I think in high school in particular, like really making sure you have time to yourself just to like decompress, and sort of prioritizing like self-care and your health, I think is definitely something I could have done more of in high school, and I think is something I'm really trying to incorporate into my schedule now. So, um, as much as we all have really busy schedules and lives, it's just maybe something important to remember, and keep time for.
Yeah, I love that. And then just kind of following up with that, how can our student audience right now listening to this talk with maybe limited resources or connections get started in STEM, whether that's through research or the academic projects, or of course through the IYNA?
Of course, well, I think the first place I think you can start is IYNA. Even if you're not near a chapter, or there it doesn't seem like there's a direct resource applicable to you, I think definitely reach out to Jacob or I, or really Arla, or honestly anyone, and I think they'd be able to do a really good job of connecting you with someone who can provide you with regional resources, or generally give you an idea of what might be best to explore based on your interests. Um, but I think even beyond that, like Google brought me to the IYNA. Google could probably bring you to some good opportunities, obviously like vetted ones. And I think like really searching for people who interest you and people who you think could bring you to the next level, or the next step in your career path, who are doing what you want to do. I've always found cold emailing has been really effective. Just introducing yourself and your passion is honestly like very compelling to a lot of people. And 99% of the time, not a true statistic, but one I would hope would be true. People are really willing to help you out. And I think that should hopefully get you started.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. Sort of our hope in the work that we've done with the IYNA is that anybody with any amount of resources or with any environment would be able to join and engage with the IYNA. I think just the fact that you're all here shows that you're excited about sort of careers in neuroscience, learning more about the field. And I think if that's something you're excited about, like we definitely love to welcome you to some of our future programs and have you continue exploring neuroscience with us. I would say sort of beyond the IYNA itself, yeah, just looking for opportunities you're interested in, looking for opportunities you're interested online, trying to find maybe like if there's a university in your area, trying to look at labs that may have had prior undergraduate or high school students contributing to the lab, that might be a good sign that they're a good training environment for younger students. So I guess there are a lot of different ways to, I guess, just figuring out sort of once you have a sense of sort of something you want to explore, just looking it up online, seeing if there's somebody you could talk with is probably a good way to get started, as Jiya mentioned. And then for the IYNA in particular, I think, Jiya, I'm not sure sort of when exactly we're going to be doing this, so you could speak more to it, but I think we are sort of going to be trying to recruit more volunteers in the not too distant future. So if you're interested in joining our team, joining our mission of sort of supporting neuroscience education around the world, we'd love to see your applications once those go live.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're definitely going to be recruiting for positions. I think it's going to go out early next week. And since you all attended this session, you'll get first priority with those. And we'll send out those applications to this sort of group beforehand. So hopefully you're excited to see that. But honestly, at any point in time, if you're interested in getting involved as a volunteer, or have a specific project you like to work on, I would really encourage you to email me, or just send me a quick message and I will connect you with someone or like help you get to or get involved with whatever you are interested in. So that's something that's sort of rolling, but we will have an official application form and hopefully details will go out in the next few days on that.
Right. Yeah, there are like 20 different projects that the IYNA could be doing right now that would all be very valuable. But the reason maybe they haven't been started yet is because we don't necessarily have the right enthusiastic, curious person ready to lead it. So I think if you have an idea for sort of the type of project you want to get involved with, we'd love to hear your ideas.
Yeah, I think totally. Just adding on to that, there's always so many opportunities at the IYNA. So, like, as long as you are willing to reach out to art leaders, of course, you're always going to be able to find something that you really want to do, whether that's a project or contributing to something that we already have, but adding on to that. Yeah, I think just to kind of almost wrap up our discussion, what is one piece of advice each of you would give or you to current students right now, or it would be like a piece of advice you wish you had received prior to starting your journey as a student or before as a nonprofit leader?
I think my best advice is to be curious and to seek out the opportunities you want. Um, I think that most of the time it just requires you really knowing like what you want and sort of chasing after that goal. And I think that just sort of having the determination to work for it is almost half of the work. But maybe Jacob has different advice.
I would have to agree with that. It's just really explore a whole lot of different things, and when you find the things you're excited about, really you all have the knowledge, you all have the preparedness to pursue that. You have your own unique perspective that nobody else has, and you know about your experience, you know sort of what you think is important better than anybody else. So really taking your vision, your ideas, and building on those, building on what makes you all unique, what makes you all special, what makes you all prepared to make a difference in the world. I think that's a very important thing. Like, you should all sort of make time, of course, like, make time for fun, try to find balance. But I think when you sort of feel like you know what sort of change you want to make in the world, what sort of career you want to build towards, there are a lot of resources around. And the biggest advice I have for you is to have confidence in your goals, have confidence in the things you're excited about, and pursue it wholeheartedly. I think that sort of enthusiasm and drive is what will sort of take you to where you want to go.
Yeah, I love that mindset. Thank you everyone so much for joining us here today. And of course, to our two excellent speakers, thank you, Jiya and Jacob.